Welcome to the 11 Members Daily Show, where we bring you an insider's perspective on all the latest breaking news involving Russia, Ukraine, and obviously our one and only President Donald Trump and his administration. Lots to talk about today, but what we will want to talk about is the Ukraine deal. It's been changing as it goes along. I guess Donald Trump has decided he's going to change the deal again. Now he wants more than just minerals. He wants Ukraine to decide to give up territory. He wants there to be elections. He wants Zelensky out of the way. But the Ukrainians are willing to negotiate. They're meeting right now. They're meeting in Saudi Arabia. Let's just jump right into it. We got Grant Stern here. He's one of the directors and writers of Occupy Democrats. We have Alex Bolbier from Free Ukraine, Voice of Ukraine, Alex. And we have some guests that might be joining us later. So let's dive right into it. Grant, what's happening? What's going on?
Well, it's a sunny day here in South Florida, and Donald Trump is trying to sabotage Ukraine. Pretty much that's every day down here. It's really sad. It's really sad to watch this happen, but there is a modicum of good news, which is that in Europe, this is having a very salutary effect on the backbones of the many, many leaders of the many, many states of Europe. So I think that he's really solidifying a coalition behind Zelensky while he tries to, erode the bridge.
Yeah, I think it's definitely backfiring on him, similar to what happened with the Democrats and him when they attacked him. As far as it went, with his criminal cases, every time they would attack him with his criminal cases, his numbers would go up. Similar here, every time he attacks Zelensky, every time he tries to support Russia, the support for Zelensky, especially in Ukraine, has gotten skyrocketed. Even his opposition leaders, the people that are opposing him, are coming out supporting him against Donald Trump. Alex, anything you're hearing in Ukraine on your side? What's happening as far as the Ukrainians are concerned? Zelensky.
Well, I believe hello again. I believe that they're treating this meeting the same way as Zelensky treated the meeting at the White House. Let's hear what they got to say, because I watched the Verkhovna Rada today talk, and they're saying, yeah, there could be offers. But the Ukrainian constitution, the parliament is supposed to solidify any deal. No matter what deal is signed, unless the parliament improves it, the deal is meaningless. So, plus everybody knows that by the constitution of Ukraine, anybody that gives up even 1 inch of the territory is considered a treason. So Ukraine will never give up its territories. So that's impossible.
That's interesting you say that. Alex, let's stop on that for a second. It's interesting you say that, because part of what Donald Trump is saying right now is part of the new conditions of the deal is that Ukraine needs to give up territory. They have to, Grant, Alex is saying here right now that as a Ukrainian, he's in Ukraine. He's been on the front line. And he's saying that Ukrainians are not going to give up any territory. It's basically treason. But then if you take a look at, how do you end this war, though? Because, without giving up any territory, I have my own understanding. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a trap, obviously. These kind of constitutional provisions aren't a big secret, right? And so this is what Putin wants, to put out a show, to try and get them to all do something that they cannot do. That would require a vote of the entire country. This is the kind of political trap that Putin delights in, right? Because he has no such political weaknesses of democracy restraining him. So he looks at democracies for the weaker points and tries to hit those. And of course, he's going to send Donald Trump off to try and tap those weak points, which are, inflection points where then he can step in and try to sway public opinion. Right? That's the level of problem it would take to have that. So that's, of course, a great place to start your negotiations. You fold, but it's much more subtle than that, and it doesn't fit in the headline. The people that are writing the headlines scarcely have the ability to tie their own shoes or maybe walk and chew gum at the same time, apparently, because, they're not saying, Trump provides one-sided deal to Ukrainians. Trump brings Russian deal to Ukrainians, because that's really what's happening. Trump sat there and lied to the public. And I thought this was the biggest lie from the JD Vance blow up meeting. He lied to the public and he said, well, I'm not on your side and I'm not on Putin's side. I'm only on one side, America's side. That was actually his biggest lie, because all he does is carry Putin's water into the meeting room. He's never been like, hey, Putin, you're going to have to give something up, even with this phony sanctions threat.
It's crazy. It's crazy to watch because, look, and again, when we talk about give up territory, Alex, maybe you could
can add something
Yeah,
about the territories.
Yeah.
This deal is a trap by Russia. It's total trap. I'll tell you why. Because and I'm in shock that administration does not know that, because Lavrov said publicly that these 4 regions of Ukraine occupied are right now in the constitution. They're right now being written in the constitution as part of Russia. So Russia has the same constitutions for years and years. They cannot give up a territory that's in their constitution. So neither Ukraine, neither Russia, they cannot give up even a piece of land. So this is a deadlock, and Russia knows that.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense.
Because this is nobody can give up territory here.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that these kind of negotiations, when you're standing on deadlocked territory saying let's negotiate, we're deadlocked, they lead to more violence. Like, that's my personal opinion. And with Donald Trump trying to do a little rug pull for the Ukrainians, because let's face it, he's a vindictive person. He remembers being impeached over Ukraine. It doesn't matter
absolutely.
whether it's fair or unfair, wrong or right, whether he did it or didn't. He doesn't care. He's not that kind of caring person, right, Lev? He doesn't care. He just cares it happened, right?
And absolutely. And believe me when I tell you that Oval outburst that happened, the way he looks at it, the way Mega has turned it into, and the way they see it is basically that it was Zelensky being ungrateful, and it's another, and it stirred him up. It basically stirred him up.
No, look, I like to call this right-wing groupthink. There's a Soviet term for it, okay? And the term is vranyo, right? The lie that politicians tell that everybody knows they're going to tell. And they know that they're lying, but it doesn't matter because that's the lie they need to sustain them, right? It's almost like the politician equivalent of like when people lie because they're paid. Like Donald Trump's CFO, who went to jail a couple of times for it, right? For fraud and for perjury. But he's like, well, I got paid, so I'm okay with this. And this is the politicians, to maintain the power, they have to tell the lie. Everybody knows it's a lie. They don't care that it's a lie. It's the lie they've accepted because it sustains them. And that's like their uniting factor.
But let me ask you something. But how does it maybe it makes a little more sense to you? Because at night, Trump says, Russia promised me that they will negotiate. And Europe responds, well, we don't believe Putin. And then the next morning, Lavrov goes online and says, we're not going to stop fighting. We're not going to cease fire because they will give Ukraine a chance to regroup. This is what he said in the morning. So, this is all in the open. Then he says, I spoke to Putin. He doesn't mind that the European troops to be as a peacekeepers. And Lavrov comes out and says, under no circumstance, not from Europe. And we can't even have peace until we come to our original problem, until we resolve it. And the original problem, it was to get all the countries that became NATO after 1997 to go back. So, and they are talking total different strategies, Trump and Russia. So it's like it's a total some kind of new approach to get everybody nuts, or they're not talking. So but that's a number one question. Number two question is more for Lev. I read your book. I read the book about him and Apprentice and a couple of other things about him. And you said that, and unless I misunderstood you, and everybody said for Trump, America is number one, and he does everything for America. But right now, he's totally destroying it. I mean, what he does is irreversible. I just cannot understand how can somebody that loves America so much can destroy it so much.
Well, there's two different versions of loving America. I mean, Trump's version of America and America First is the 1700s. Where his version of America is where he doesn't see Mercedes and Toyotas and all kinds of cars all over the street, but all you see is American-made cars, Ford and GM. He wants, the Levi's jeans back where it's American made, that where you don't see no more made in China, made in Europe, made in Italy, made in France, and all of that. Where now we're a powerful trading, all over the world. He wants to bring that. That's his vision of America first. His vision of America is not to have immigrants here. His vision of America is that pure white race, that Christian pure white race. And Grant, maybe you could talk a little bit more about it from an aspect as a journalist, but I'm talking about from just personally knowing Donald Trump. I mean, that's his version of America. So it's not like he doesn't think he's making harm to America. He truly wants, in his whatever small little brain of his, that he thinks that this is actually helping America by destroying all of these relationships that have taken decades and decades to be able, especially after World War II, to put together, to be able to have calm, peace, world trade, having open borders where people could be traveling, where just think about it. Back in the 70s and 80s, when we lived in America, you didn't think about traveling to Europe. I mean, you didn't go. I mean, if you Mexico or the Caribbean, where
Well, people went, but it wasn't like now where people like fly over for a vacation. It's also safe,
correct.
And back then it was a much different story. But let's talk about this, because I feel like the beginning does have seeds about the end where we are today, which is that Donald Trump's dad was, essentially a member of the KKK, the son of a German immigrant, an illegal German immigrant, because he illegally left Germany. How funny is that? They didn't want him back, right? So Trump's grandfather left Germany to run a brothel in Canada, tried to come back, and they kicked him out. They deported him to America. They're like, "You're out, dude." And then his son was an America Firster, someone who was influenced by the likes of Henry Ford. People forget that Henry Ford was also a vicious anti-Semite. He ran his car company like a fiefdom. Everything started great with Henry Ford, but then he was working for the Nazis and the communists, right? He was actually very tight with the communists in Soviet Russia. The tractors were all Fords. And they even had an ideology called Fordismus, like Fordism. Like Fordism was a thing. I mean, and it's not so different from what Elon Musk is doing today, which is really scary. And so Donald Trump's father was one of these America Firsters, the people that were in favor of the Nazis. They wanted American isolationism, right? In the face of a world war in Europe, right? But in Europe, they were already the Nazis went and captured France. They're bombing London. It was a little bit different story than Russia and Ukraine. But Russia and Ukraine Ukraine is very strategic territory when you think about it. And so it was the fulcrum point in World War II, right? But yeah, Steve Bannon said it in 2017. He said, "We're going to take America back to the 1930s."
Yeah.
And he meant it, and here we are. We're fucked.
And think about what was America in the 1930s. The first thing that women had no rights. And what did they do? The first thing they did is they went and took away women's right when it comes to their body, their right to.
Well, women had no rights. They rounded up immigrants into camps.
The camps. There was
Korematsu, and Korematsu blessed it. This terrible Supreme Court decision, which the Supreme Court says they're going to overrule, but.
I mean, right. And you had virtually no international travel. I mean, it was like very little, very rare. And
look, I've seen discounts for hotels in Miami right now, like discounts online advertised during the high season. This is the high season in Florida.
It's unheard of because I mean, this is what is, and this is just the beginning. This is not. This is.
Yeah, no. I saw a Canadian bank There's a major Canadian bank who just closed their only West Palm outlet, right? Like it's happening step
And
by
that-
step
right.
by
And
step.
this is
These
just
people
Canada.
are
And
pulling
we're
up the
like-
ladder and they're like, hey, you know what? We don't want to flood the market with our condos. And it's not a good time to sell a condo in Florida. But I can tell you right now, like over time, you're going to see people bailing out. And then the market's going to, start shrinking with the internationals who leave. I mean, you can't, if you live in South Florida, I don't think you can go a week without meeting somebody who voted for Trump probably, but is not going to get what they wanted. And they're going to get the opposite. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
a lot of-
insane.
It's crazy,
Yeah.
guys. But what else happened in 1930s? In 1930s, when America decided to make money on tariffs, the recession had.
No, that was the late 20s. That was 1929.
I know, but it led.
Yeah.
It led to a depression.
Well, it created the depression and made it happen. Yes.
And what are we talking about today? Morning recession. I mean, they literally yesterday Donald Trump is being asked, and it's crazy the way that he changed this mandate. Because we'll go off the subject a little bit. Because I mean, most of America, that whoever did vote for him, they didn't vote for him for his relationships the way he was planning on doing with Putin. They voted on him because they thought he was going to lower gas prices, tax prices, egg prices, but instead everything is going the other way. Not only that is, Donald Trump personally, if and I know him, he watches the stock market like he watches, like golf stock market, very similar to him in his world. And to watch the market being destroyed on a daily basis and having him come out now and talk
He's probably freaking out right now.
Oh, he's definitely freaking out because
There's a lot of
he's used to coming out and saying. I mean, just think about it. He's going back and forth with the tariffs. I mean, first he put it on, then he took it off, put it on, took it off. Now it's April 2nd. And,
I mean,
we'll see what happens when April 2nd comes around.
Not only is the market going down, but Tesla shares are dropping sharply. I mean, let's not forget that Elon Musk's ownership of the Twitter X platform came via bank loans secured by his shares. I mean, this could be a big deal if something were to happen, I mean, I'm just saying.
I mean, just watching this, and again, we're only like not even 2 months into the presidency. It's only been, what is it, like 45 days as we're watching it. But,
he's trying to crash the economy in 100 days. I mean, they're really...
The things he ran on, the things that, I mean, people...
Well, he specifically ran on not doing Project 2025. Everybody hated it. And then he specifically did Project 2025.
Right. He said he's going to stop the Ukraine war in one day. He hasn't come even close.
This is day 45.
And not only that, I think he's taken it to such a degree now where now it's becoming even more difficult.
Yeah, no, he's actually working to inflame it, if anything, or give Russia excuses, to escalate.
I mean, the guy's planning on building a Riviera in the Gaza Strip. Taking over Greenland, making Canada its 50. None of these things were discussed or talked about on the campaign. I never heard of any of this at his rallies. The things that I heard were like, we're going to make egg prices lower. We're going to take inflation down. But we're going to take, immigration, throw people out. But the things that he was saying about
Lev, egg prices are lower because you can't find them. So if the price is zero, you can't. That is lower.
Yeah.
My God, I can't believe you have so little faith in the Trump.
I mean, even in immigration, if you take a look at the numbers, I mean, I don't have the numbers now, but what I've been hearing is that the numbers have been higher under the Biden administration than they are under Trump when it comes to the daily immigration of people that they throw out of the country. I mean, the numbers are lower. It's just, I'm watching this and they're walking away completely from everything that he spoke about and are just basically trying to turn this country, like you said, to the 1930s. And the other thing is the oligarchy. Let's talk about them. Back in the 30s and 20s, you had like 4, 5, 6 families that controlled the United States, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, and so on. That's what we got rid of to make it a democracy. Now he's basically turning it back to, and that's where you got the Elon Musk, you got the billionaires who are controlling the world, the rich and the powerful, just like you have the oligarchs in Russia, the oligarchs in Eastern Europe, and all over the world that we fought so hard against. and now we're basically the leader in all of that by having our oligarchs start running our country. I mean, it's incredible to watch that. And he's not even an American oligarch. I mean, is he Grant? Like, well, what is the story?
You know, he signed the document, but look, I'm not here to question someone's Americanness. I'm here to question his propriety in office, and it's nil. Zero. There's no reason for Elon Musk to be doing what he's doing. He's a government employee and he's a government contractor at the same time. That's a problem.
And
okay?
He's overseeing himself.
He's overseeing himself, right? I mean, the look, they've been lying to numerous federal courts have been lied to, right? I mean, I think it's getting to this point, right? They're so confident that they can do whatever they want, lie about it, cheat, steal, and not get caught. That this is the weapon that we have to let them do it until they do get caught. And I feel like the getting caught part is going to arrive at some point, maybe. I mean, courts have some powers to do things. They are a branch of government, right? And they've been lying to that branch of government. And it gets serious when you start doing that as a fellow equal branch of government, right? Because there's this checks and balances thing. And so it's early in the lie, but if they can, if these private individuals prosecuting them in civil court can do something spectacular, it only takes one to really fundamentally change the relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I think it just takes one successful one.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think that, eventually there are two trains that are gonna be colliding eventually. I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and there are still 5 votes on the Supreme Court to uphold basic sanity sometimes. Sometimes. I mean, there's at least 4. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the Supreme Court has started to become polarized on gender lines. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy Coney Barrett has voted in a lot of 5-4s with the liberals because she's like, yeah, this is actually what's written down, guys. And I know you're justifying everything with your bullshit over there, but like, didn't you all say for all these years the law is actually what's written here?
I've seen a big push by the right wing and especially Mega on X against Amy Coney Barrett saying that she's a DEI. not DEI.
Right? I mean,
it's very
she's the product. Look, she's the product of their biggest hypocrisy ever, stealing a seat from Obama and then giving it to Trump. And it's the reason for stealing it being that there was an election, giving it to her with a 5-day hearing right before the election. I think that it's just poetic justice. Karma.
I agree with you. So let me ask you, Alex, when are they meeting? Zelensky. So who's going to be meeting at this in Ukraine? Zelensky's going.
I know it's Yermak. I know it's Arahamia, and not on my tongue the third name. But Zelensky is also there, but he's not going to this meeting. He already met with the prince. He's right now in a meeting with the prince.
But he's not going to the delegations they're meeting. But Zelensky's
he's not going to.
I mean, listen. You know who wins this negotiation? The Saudis.
Right.
And the Saudis are definitely some of Donald Trump's best friends.
But not just the Saudis. I tell you what else is going on is I'm watching European news before I watch anything else, and I see what's going on in Europe. Like before, they would freak out. Now in Europe, nobody's freaking out already. And when they say, "So listen, we got a new rule. We don't listen to Trump. We watch what he does. We don't listen to what he says. They're not listening to him anymore. But they are not waiting for him either." Europe, what was the nightmare during the Cold War for Russia and America? For Europe to be its own entity, for Europe to be able to take care of themselves. No, they did everything to prevent that. And now,
well, hold on a second. That's so the reason. Look, the Cold War nightmare was that Germany would reunify, rearm, and try to reconquer the continent, or that perhaps France would do the same thing, but more Germany at the time. okay, because Germany had the kind of industrial base to do it, right? And so they'd been through 2 world wars, and the key that they thought at the time, the key was keep Germany separated. That was their key to European, but the European Union, right? Ironically, an idea of Napoleon's. Think about it. Napoleon was the first person to think that there should be like a pan-European country, really. The EU, the EC first, and then the EU. And now the European countries have stopped with the fighting and started realizing, hey, we share a continent. We're a continental country, and they've been building the nation of Europe, so to speak, for a long time now. I mean, having a single currency was a big part of it. And then everybody's seeing what happened with the UK and Brexit. It's been a huge punishment in the United Kingdom. It was a big mistake. And I'll just tell you that was an enormous example. It was a galvanizing moment. And I think it's very telling that Europe and the UK are now suddenly kind of coming back together. We might even see the UK rejoin the EU and maybe even move out of their currency this time as well. You never know. This is a moment where people see very clearly that the future path is, there's a divergence. Either you choose doing what you have to ensure security, or you try to, outsource it, pretend somebody else is going to make it all happen for you when they are clearly saying we don't want to. And there's your World War II recipe, the appeasement path that Donald Trump is advocating. I mean, he's appeasing, and that's wrong.
Yeah. And now you cannot. It's like avalanche. You already started. Europe for 30 years they've been chilling, making money, and they knew they were protected. Now with this movements, certain things have started that you cannot rewind anymore.
No, you can't ring these bells. And Donald Trump is. The whole thing is that he got away with being a bull in the china shop the first time because everybody in the resistance and people inside of his government who knew better, right? He went and hired a bunch of people that had some intelligence, right? Because he couldn't find anybody else. So he had no transition and everything was ad hoc. And then when he tried to do all those things, he did it all in secret, right, Lev?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
he's just doing all the things in the open that he tried in secret, right?
Well, that's the complete difference. I mean, back then, it was a shadow diplomacy. Now he's just doing everything in the open, and that has a lot to do with who he has around him, obviously. Because back then he surrounded himself with what you call the rhinos nowadays, who the people that had loyalty to our Constitution and that wanted to protect us from dictatorship. Now he surrounded himself with a complete whole group of people that are out there. Can you please?
Hey, Lev, I have an actual question for you, though.
Yeah.
So, do you think that his diplomacy was more shrewd when he was doing shadow instead of just yelping things out in the Oval Office in front of the whole world?
It's a great question. It was both of it was comical. I mean, if you think back in the day of how it took him 3-4 times to fire the ambassador, even though it was a very serious thing that happened, and I don't want to make light of it, but I mean, if you look back of having the United States president of the United States sitting there screaming, fire her, to his, Madeline, his secretary, and she's telling him, I can't do it because Pompeo and others refused to take his orders and do exactly what he wanted to do. Whereas now, he doesn't even have to mention it, where he just looks at it and he has people around him that know exactly and are ready to fire, take away, and do. And by the way, I want to stop and welcome Brian Krasstein to the show. How are you, Brian? I'm sorry I didn't see you down there. We would have brought you up earlier. Brian's been down there for a while, and for some technical reason, I couldn't see him down there. So welcome to the show, Brian. We got Grant, Alex here. We just dive into it. We're talking about, the Ukrainian deal, obviously that is supposed to go ahead, Grant. I'm sorry.
I actually have to take off in a moment. So this is a great time to say goodbye. And if you're watching, you can go to grantstern.com, check out my newsletter from there. It's newsletter.grantstern.com. Sorry, I can't hang out more, Brian.
Did I chase you away?
You didn't chase me away, man. It's just somebody else actually has the recording suite right after me here. I just ran in to catch Lev. So have a really good rest of the broadcast. And please look out for my clips on Blue Sky. It's grantstern.bluesky.com. That's where I post all my fun, magical, fun time with Newsmax and a whole lot more.
Definitely.
I've
watch
seen
the
those. They're
Grant.
great.
Yeah, the Newsmax ones, definitely love it. I'm glad you're doing that, Grant. Thank you for coming in.
Somebody's
You're
got to
always
go where they
welcome.
are.
Go do it, brother. Go do it.
Take care.
So Brian, yeah, I mean, not to rehash it, I know you also don't have a lot of time, so just wanted to go over with you. I mean, your thoughts on what's going on with with this whole Ukraine deal. That now we have Trump that's changing it all up by adding stuff to it. That now it's not just minerals. He's now wants Ukraine to make sure that they give up territory. That they also start going towards elections during the war. What are your thoughts on all that?
I keep going back and forth. I don't know if he's just completely incompetent or he actually, wants to screw over Ukraine. And I think it's probably a mixture of both. I think, like you were saying earlier, he wants to get revenge over, Zelensky kind of cozying up to Biden, but he also doesn't really know how any of this negotiating stuff works. And he's all over the place, right? Like you have him, okay, we're going to sign this mineral deal, everything's going to be great, and then minutes later it's out the window, and now he's requesting more of Ukraine. I think that if I was in his administration, and I know it's filled with yes men up and down, but there has to be people like Rubio who are just so aggravated and so frustrated at what's happening, but they don't speak up. And we've seen this with Rubio before, like once he latched onto Trump, he's a yes man, even though his morals and, he is one of the people that were very, very anti-Russia,
yeah, absolutely.
and to see this transition to like just, sucking up to Trump and doing whatever Trump says and making excuses for just like batshit crazy rhetoric that Trump has towards Zelensky and Ukraine. It's just like I couldn't have even imagined this, and I didn't have any respect for Rubio to begin with.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I said right away after that Oval meeting, the first thing Rubio should have done was, quit. Basically, it would have been a gentleman's way of actually leaving. I mean, to stay there, like you said, Brian. I mean, everything. If you take a look at going back in Rubio's history, that it's all been anti-Russia, anti-Putin, pro-Ukraine, and now, I mean, to do a complete 360 after the Oval, it's just, But look, we saw that during the elections when he ran. They had the little, Rubio comments, and when Trump, basically went after him. They all bowed down. It's incredible to watch. I was there front row to watch that thing happen. But I agree with you. Not only that, but I also think that even if you take the Rubio out of the picture, Trump doesn't have anybody around him that really knows Russians or Ukrainians. The people he has that are, telling, except for the actual Russians that are working behind the scenes with the Jared Kushners and others on the scene to be able to advise him. But he doesn't have people like that, have America, like people like, I'm going to say like myself that were part of that whole shadow diplomacy. I mean, even though what we were doing, history looked back at it and it was the wrong thing to do. But at the time, we were trying to, I thought I was saving our democracy. I thought I was getting rid of the deep state. I thought I was doing what the president wanted to, and it was the right thing to do. And that's a subject of its own. But, to watch it now unfold without, you don't need any shadow diplomacy. I mean, he's doing it in front of our eyes, just, telling it, doing whatever he wants, and being controlled. Because again, like I said, you don't have, you take the Witkoffs, you take the, Rubios, none of these people are actually know the Ukrainian mentality. None of these people actually know the Russian mentality. I mean, so they're going into it basically blinded by trying to, and they think that the bullying, the powerful way that we're going to tell Ukraine to sit down or we're going to tell them what to do is going to work. And I think, Trump's going to learn a lesson. It's going to be the opposite effect, just like what happened in 2019. Just like Zelensky didn't announce the investigation into the Bidens, I don't think Zelensky bows down and gives up, all of this territory. I mean, mineral rights is a different ballgame. I think, Zelensky would want, in the right deal, to have America as a partner. I think it would be a great deal if the right deal was structured. I think it's a good deal all around. but that wasn't the deal that was proposed. So I don't think that was the right deal, and I'm glad they didn't sign it. But as far as elections, that's another thing. I mean, forget about everything else. He wants to have elections. Trump is forcing because they need to get Zelensky out of the way, because they both, Putin and Trump, realize that Zelensky's not going to play ball. That he's not going to bow down to their what's called. Now they need to get him out of the way.
Lev, this is a question. So if, say they did have elections, right? Like his opponents are not any more pro Putin anyway, right? So like would it?
Can I let me add to this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The most favorite person right now after Zelensky is the general. Is the general that there is right now in UK. They both pledged. Zelensky said, "If he runs, I won't run." And he said, "If he runs, I won't run." So and these guys, you cannot buy them. These are like.
But Alex, my story to my reporting, you tell me that they're not going to talk to the generals. They've been speaking to the Trump administration has been reaching out to some of these older names, back to what I was dealing with, Petro Poroshenko, the ex-president of Ukraine, and Yulia Tymoshenko, who's the ex-prime minister of Ukraine. And the reason why Trump is going to them is because these are the people that we were working with at that time that were running for the president against Zelensky, that were willing to play ball with us to announce an investigation into Zelensky. So they already have some history back there. They're thinking if they can put them into place, they'll play ball and do what they say to. But the interesting part is they both rejected Trump. They both turned around. Tymoshenko and Poroshenko said that this is not a time where you could actually even hold elections. I mean, just think about it. First of all, you have most of the country either fighting at war, or the other part of the country that's displaced, that's either out of their country or living somewhere else. To hold elections, I mean, you would have to basically give Russia free aim at people standing in line to vote, where Russia could just shoot it. I mean, it's just insane to think about. And to see Trump push so hard for it, you could tell that whatever talking points and whatever negotiations happening is coming from somebody that is really pro-Russia. And I truly believe it's, I'm going to keep going back to it until, you guys will see. You heard it here first. This has to do with Kirill Dmitriev and Jared Kushner's relationship. I think that's where all of this is being pushed and coming from, because I could see the way Trump is talking. It's the same way it was back then in Ukraine. He's just talking points, but he really doesn't understand what's going on and what's happening. He's being told what to do, and he thinks these are wins, and he trusts, because it's coming from Jared or somebody close to him, that these are the right things, and that's why he's just blabbering them out, just like he did in 2019.
Let me add a little to it, Lev, if you don't mind. I was in Ukraine when the war started. I was waking up 4 a.m. with the missiles landing and my daughter running around. So I went through this whole thing. And I saw Ukraine before the war, Ukrainians, and I know Ukraine during the war. And right now, the last poll that was asked people who they see as the leaders, there's a lot of fresh names, like Budanov, like people that do a lot of stuff for the country, but Poroshenko and Tymoshenko, they're all the way on the bottom.
Alex, I agree with you, but it's not about elections, because that's what I'm trying to say to you, because Trump is trying to put somebody into Ukraine. Trump's trying to put in the next president of Ukraine, because I agree with you. If you were to do free and fair elections, the people that he's speaking to have no chance. But that's why Trump is speaking to these people, because Trump's administration can't speak to anybody that is, not corrupt, I would say, or very little corrupt. Exactly. Go ahead, Brian. You want to say something?
So what do you think why do you think Kushner would be pushing Trump in this direction?
Oh, because I think of the relationship Kushner has with this Kirill Dmitriev. I don't know if you heard about him or know anything about him, Brian. No. This is just to quickly let the viewers know. He was born in Ukraine, was educated here in the United States. I think he went to Stanford. He then went back
and Harvard.
And Harvard, thank you. And then he went back to instead of Ukraine, he went back to Moscow. and started doing business there, and ended up marrying Vladimir Putin's one of his daughter's best friend. That she's actually even involved in some of her charity work and stuff like that. Through that, he became close to Putin and started running a fund for him. And then eventually met with Jared Kushner back in the first Trump administration, back in Saudi, and was involved. There was already some reporting, I think, done by some news agencies that he was involved in the first meeting between the Russians and the Americans in Saudi at this meeting. So the two of them were discussing it. So, and then my sources on both sides, both in Trump world and both in Russia, are telling me that the relationship is strong, and a lot of the talking points are coming from those two. So this way, there's no direct link to Putin or or others.
Let me add one more thing to it, which is very important piece. After Dmitry was in America, he was in stock market, Goldman. I mean, he was like a guru in business. When from America, before he went to Russia, he spent 4 years as a huge fund in Ukraine. So he knows everything where everything is in Ukraine. So right now, he has a lot of information on Ukraine, and he's feeding it to, like Lev said, to Kushner, and Kushner sending it up, and information comes in the way Russians need it to come in,
Right, just
not
like
the way it really is.
I know, I agree with you 100%. That's why the mineral deal is being structured the way. I mean, look, Putin has a lot of people that were powerful in Ukraine that know where, like, even Medvedchuk, if you remember Medvedchuk, who was in charge and ran the pro-Russian party back then, that eventually got arrested and then given back to Ukraine. I mean, the billionaire oligarch. So I agree with you. They have a lot, but you could tell that the way the deal is coming from Russia, the way they're structuring it and giving it to Ukraine, that it's coming from somebody that knows in Ukraine, but it's for Russia's favor. And that's why Alex said, I said, every guest we've had on the show so far has said that mineral deal would be a trap, because what if the United States signed that mineral deal that was proposed with Russian war? It would put the United States in between basically Ukraine and Russia at some point, and they would have to take sides. And we obviously know what side Donald Trump would take, where we stand now. But yeah,
This
go ahead.
is the breaker right now.
Yeah. Look, I want to thank you guys for coming. Brian, thank you so much, and I apologize for the technical difficulties.
No
I know
problem.
we had you backstage a little bit too long, but please come back on. We're going to be doing this Love Remember show every day, bringing it live, talking about what's happening behind the scenes, and when it heats up, we'll get you some information that nobody else knows about. Thank you, Alex, for everything you do in Ukraine, helping the people there and getting the truth out. Slava Ukraini. And thank you to all our viewers. And please subscribe to the YouTube, subscribe to Brian, subscribe to Alex, subscribe to all our great guests, and definitely subscribe to my Substack, which we're going to be doing something special every day for our subscribers. I'm going to be doing a live Q&A where you will be able to get questions and answers about the hottest topics and insights with me. So thank you again. Have a great day. And, as this gets rolling, we'll be back live again. Take care.
See you guys.
Take care.